Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Disability Landscape. Today, we're going to introduce a new, hopefully, member of our crew here, and he's going to tell us about his sports and all that other fun stuff. But we're going to throw it over to Mark Knutson right now, and he'll introduce our guest.
Yeah, this is thinking about this. Our first guest has been involved in quite a few of wheelchair sports, and with mine and Charlie's background, in our younger years, we were involved in quite a few wheelchair sports, and I think if my memory serves right, since we've started this show back in July, I think this is our actual first wheelchair athlete that we have to the show. So I'd like to welcome to the show Jackson Larson. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, I guess what I would like to start out, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but for me, obviously, for a lot of people, a lot of the wheelchair sports is done, through Courage Center and what have you. Courage. See, I'm the old timer. Courage Center. It's Kenny, Courage Kenny. Mark. Okay, but how did you get involved in finding out about wheelchair sports, and is your disability from birth? I guess kind of explain
Yeah,
that and how you got in, how you found out about the wheelchair sports.
yeah. So I had a motor vehicle accident. I tried to jump into my vehicle to stop it. My vehicle started doing donuts in reverse, and the side passenger was door was open. So I tried to get closer to jump in to stop it, and then the door it smacked my spine, and it paralyzed me from the waist down. And that was in 2010. So when I was 16 years old. And then, yeah, then I was airlifted to HCMC, went to Gillette Children's, and then through
Okay.
Gillette Children's, they kind of told me about Courage Center. So I went to Courage Center and did my physical therapy and, learning how to do curb jumps. And the coolest thing is Sharon Van Winkle, she approached me and she said, "My gosh, you're tall. You need to play basketball." And I was like,
Yeah, yeah. Even in
"Yeah,
wheelchairs, if you're tall, you're playing
yeah,
basketball.
exactly. Yeah." So, yeah, she was like, "Oh, yeah, you should totally play." And I was like, I don't know if it's for me. Like, I don't know if I was feeling sorry for myself or what, but I
Yeah, I was
was
going to
like,
ask you, were you an F? Did you compete in sports before your injury then, or?
yeah, I mean, mostly, I mean, in middle school, I did like baseball and basketball, but my main sport, I guess, was golf.
Okay,
So nothing like super physical against other people.
right.
But
There's
it's
no
a lot of,
contact golf.
yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Um,
kind of an interesting thing now that we mentioned it.
yeah, that'd be an interesting sport. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so yeah, Sharon saw me and she's like, "Oh, by golly, you're so tall." So then eventually like I went into the gym and I shot some baskets in my regular wheelchair, my old school wheelchair. But then yeah, then I got involved with it. I was on the Rolling Gophers and I had a lot of fun. And then
Yep.
traveling, meeting other people, learning from people, understanding that, hey, there are other disabilities out there and people can live normal lives. And I learned a lot of tips and tricks too from the Braun family with Claire, Mark, and Lucas. So, just learning how to make hotels work. So the great thing about sports is not only are you learning how to be physically active, but you meet other people and they give you this wonderful insight so you can kind of like move ahead, with learning
Yeah,
to
I mean,
adapt.
with the Braun family, if you aren't involved in sports, they don't know who you are. That's kind of the
Yep.
way they are. And I know Mark is still edging to try and get into their Paralympics with his track. So we always wish him the best with that. So
Yeah.
now you've continued to golf, and that had to have been an adjustment going. well, you're using like a motorized cart on the course now, correct? With the disability and the golfing.
Yeah, so I used the very first cart that I used was the um solo rider. So it's kind of like a golf cart, and then you just sit up a little bit and then you can swing away. But the newest thing that I've used is the paragolfer, which pretty much stands you upright, and
Oh, nice.
then it's got 3 wheels, so it's
Hmm.
smaller than the other cart. And the cool thing is you could be up on a hill standing, but there's like a
Okay.
gyro mechanism in it, so you're not going to tip over.
Oh,
So that's just a really cool thing. I swing one-handed now. That's the only
And I
real
ask you that because
difference.
I used to golf and I'm a I was a one-handed swinger, but I was kind of curious because now I did one hand because I don't have the real trunk muscles, so my balance is off. I don't know if you have that same issue or not, but yeah, I'm a one-handed swinger.
Okay. Yeah, so my injury is at T9. I have a burst fracture at T9, and my
okay.
core is decent. Like it's not bad, but it's not great. But I just
Yeah.
hold myself with my left hand to just have more stability.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I get a pretty good, accurate, straight shot with my right hand. So it's kind of fun to do it that way. Because
So
I
you're building
think
up
if
a
I,
little extra strength in that right arm to get that swing right. And
yep,
the balance has got to be a little different though, because using a two-handed swing, you know, you're using basically your whole body. And the one-handed, are you finding that you kind of stabilize yourself more that way?
yeah, I feel like I'm stabilizing myself more when I swing one-handed, and then it's almost like I get hip motion when I do one-handed. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
okay.
It's like you can twist your body a lot more
Sure.
easily. Because if I go two-handed, I'll lose it and collapse.
Yeah,
Even
exactly. That's the same such problem that I would encounter too if I did the two-handed. Um, I was halfway through the swing, I'm like all over the place.
yeah,
And then you're watching for the flying club.
yep.
did you did you Jackson with golf? Um, I never got into it that much, so I whatever clubs I could get, I used. But I know you could get clubs made with a special handle for like a one arm golfer. It basically helped you get a better grip to stabilizing the
Hmm.
club. Did you by chance get into a different type of a grip on your clubs?
No, I didn't get into a different type of grip. I sometimes will use a glove, and trying to think of the other adaptation. Oh, just that I have like longer clubs because I'm 6'2", so being able to have a longer club makes a huge difference. You don't top the ball all the time.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because you basically probably could, because I had to have the short ones. So you could probably use my driver as a putter because of
That's funny.
because of the length. And believe me, sometimes I use that driver as a putter when when you kind of get a little upset, you're just like,
Yeah.
Well, um, I think it'd be actually quite fascinating and fun, you know, once we get to that season again. And you know, golf's a nice outdoor sport, so you know, it's something you can still get out and enjoy for the most part. We'd love to follow you around with the camera and you know, show our people you know, what it's like to get out there and you know, hit a few strokes and you know, curse at a few things as well. So
now,
um,
Jackson, you might want to ask Charlie, what does he mean by foul? Does he mean by being Charlie sitting in the club room, the clubhouse, having a few, and we're giving you a camera, or are we actually following him, Charlie? We'll figure that out when we get out there, right?
well, you know, I was actually thinking that we could, you know, just give him a GoPro and we'll just sit back in the clubhouse having a few margaritas.
You could. I know the other nice thing to say too is that with the Courage Kenny program with golf, when you go to Eagle Lake, once you pay, I believe it's like $100, you get the cart membership, but then your partner also gets a golf cart. So if I went and you guys were there, you could probably ride on a cart. Although, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I actually do still have a um a single rider. When I first started doing, because I did golf for quite a few years, and I actually golfed from the wheelchair, so I would hold onto the golf cart and get pulled around. But towards the end, then I started using a single rider cart, and that is really nice. But probably should change speeds a little bit, because looking out the window here, it's definitely not golfing season, but we're getting into the winter sports, and
you can still see the
do,
green, so that's a little different for December this year.
right. You can see the greens, but I don't think I'd want to be with a club out there in that. But you also did or you have done in the past too, basketball and sledge hockey, correct?
Yeah. So the really cool thing about Courage Kenny was that I did this like sports week where I got to try out all the different sports. So one day I did archery, one day I demoed sled hockey, hand cycling, track and field, basketball, tennis. So
Weightlifting?
I don't think they did like a weightlifting thing
Oh,
per
that's
se,
my
but
sport, weightlifting.
weightlifting.
So
Okay.
you
Mark is now
almost did all the
heartbroken.
sports. You did almost did all the sports. Go ahead.
And canoeing. So yeah, so I've tried a little bit of sled hockey. I don't compete in it, but I do compete in basketball. So like I said, my first year was with the Rolling Gophers, and then just to kind of get caught up to speed with like all the rules and learning techniques, I also practiced with the junior Rolling Timberwolves. I wasn't on their team, but I would practice with them. And I honestly like wheelchair basketball more than able-bodied basketball. And I think it's a lot more fun to watch as well, just because, you see people spinning around, moving around. And when you set a pick or a seal, it's longer lasting than an able-bodied.
Yeah, it's very exactly in wheelchair basketball. The pick is so devastating, because obviously in stand-up ball, the body's a lot thinner and easier to sneak around a pick. But when you've got a four-wheel wheelchair there, there's no way getting around that pick. So a lot of wheelchair basketball, a lot of it is somewhat in the head, strategy wise. I swear every team always at least had one player who wasn't a good shooter, but knew the game and knew where to be. And it was worth it.
Yeah, the chair positioning is everything. So yeah,
well,
I was
and
able to.
the collisions in wheelchair basketball are often better than NASCAR.
Yep.
I've
So
seen a
yeah,
few
like,
bodies flying that way.
oh, yeah, I like Master Hinkle, I swear, he likes to fly out of his chair and then get back up. And yeah, it's wild to see how fast people can get back up into being on the floor and getting back up while being in their wheelchair. So a lot of great athletes out there, that's for sure.
And now outside of basketball, you've also played the wheelchair softball, correct?
Yep. So yeah, I play for the Rolling Twins, and my rookie year, we ended up winning the Wheelchair Softball World Series. And then last year, we won the Wheelchair Softball World Series as well, right before COVID. So this year, we didn't have a season. So it's nice to kind of keep that victory feel alive, right?
Yeah. Now with with wheelchair softball, can you kind of explain the difference between, stand-up softball and wheelchair softball? The most the most obvious one is, because I've played wheelchair softball too. You don't play out in a field. Wheelchairs and fields don't mix well. So why don't you explain, the differences with wheelchair softball?
Yeah, so it's a really nice tarred field, and the bases, they're just painted on the field, and you start with one ball and one strike, and it's slow pitch softball. And if your third strike is a foul ball, then you're out.
Yeah.
And trying to think, one really important thing that they have for softball is first base. They have like a base for the runner, the wheeler, and the first baseman has their own base. Otherwise, every play, boom, there'd be a collision. So
right. Yeah.
thank goodness they have that.
And then on the other bases too, to prevent everyone competing for the same base, like at second and third, and even first, the fielder just has to be, there's a circle around the base. At least when I played, they had the circle. Do they still have that, where the fielder just has to be in the circle?
Yeah. So if you go to like our new field at the Todd Anderson field, if you look at second base, all it is a big jumbo white circle.
Yep.
It's enough for, someone to be in their sports chair and be able to like just do like a 360. So yeah, there's enough space for someone to, like be running the bases, and then also someone to have the ball to try to get to the base in time. So
yeah,
it's a good size. And the collisions, oh my gosh, the collisions that can happen at home plate are wild.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, we actually had a play that made it on Sports Center's top 10, where someone, I think it was Evan Thorne, threw the ball in from the outfield to Pete Stigman at home plate, and the ball, it got to him perfectly. Pete flew behind home plate out of his wheelchair, but he still held on to the ball to get the out. And that was such a game-changing play that we needed to kind of change the momentum. So it's
you
wild.
Had Pete. So Peter was your catcher?
He was for that particular game. Yep.
Okay, because normally I know when when I was playing, I think still to the day, because each team you have to have a quad, so someone who's all four limbs are affected, and the quad would either play catcher or right field. So a lot of times your quad was what was catching. So I thought that was interesting. You had Peter behind home plate, because Peter's not a quad.
Yeah, so our quad was actually pitching. Jason Miller was pitching. So
yeah, that's the other spot they put him. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a nasty spin to his pitches.
He does?
So,
okay.
Yeah, so yeah, he did really well. So
yeah, the objective of putting a quad behind home plate is obviously they have the least to lose in a collision like that.
Yeah, or like the first baseman could run in. Yeah.
So, and what position did you normally play then, Jackson?
Yeah, so I normally played shortstop.
Okay.
Shortstop or third. So.
Yeah, so, one of the hot spots. Those are
Mm-hmm.
No,
I sometimes play third base.
Outside of the Courage Center sports, I don't know if you're aware that the high school sports, the floor hockey, that kind of thing. Were you ever involved in any of that, or were you not in a district where that was happening, or?
So what I was involved with in high school, I was on the adaptive bowling team. So I did that. Yep. So we went to the state high school tournament, but then I was also in track and field, where I competed with Mark Braun, and I was
which meant you chased Mark Braun, right?
Yep. And that's the interesting thing too with like at the state level. I don't know if they've changed it since, but I've also been involved with like National Junior Disability Championships where they have different classifications based on your disability.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
But
Yep.
for the so with the Minnesota State High School League, here I am competing against Mark, and he's has a different disability than I do. But I mean, we are using similar equipment as
Yeah.
well.
so,
Yeah. And then I go, well, I kind of had that, I know that feeling because when you're outmatched, because when I was playing wheelchair basketball, we had to go to Chicago for a playoff game. And they had this player named Donnie Vendello or whatever. And he was just a super ball handler, quick, really good. And we got there, and right before, as we're warming up, the coach is talking to us, telling us who we were all going to cover. And he says, Mark, and I was not the fastest. And he goes, Mark, you're going to get Donnie. And I'm like, me, why am I getting Donnie? He goes, basically, we're going to sacrifice you. Once he blows by you, you just try to slow him down a little bit. Once he blows by you, someone else, we'll have some other people try to. I think we almost put like 3 to 4 guys on this one person. So yeah, so it kind of really helped my self-confidence when they said, yeah, once he blows by you, I'm like, okay, gee, thanks.
It's funny, like, because like speed is like all the sports can kind of go into each other because Mark played basketball and he also did track and field. So George Kiefner, he'd say, yeah, like sometimes we'd put Mark on someone to kind of like slow that person down. And then we would say, it's the game. It's, have you met Mark? Or yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. George Kiefner, George and I used to play basketball and wheelchair softball together. In fact, I'm trying to remember. I think when George started out, in wheelchair softball, I think he was our catcher because he was just, he was just getting used to being in a wheelchair, and he wasn't the quickest. So if you're not the quickest, either catcher or pitcher is where they shove you. So yeah, George is a good person in that. So.
yeah. All right.
Just to make sure, just to let people not know that you're just not a jock, but after high school, what you did go on to college, correct? And what did you go for, sir?
Yeah, so I went to Anoka Ramsey Community College and I got my generals completed, and then I stayed there actually and got my bachelor's in psychology through Concordia University of St. Paul.
Oh,
nice.
okay.
Yep. And actually right now, like early November, close to my 10-year injury anniversary date, I started a position at the Isanti Intermediate School as an instructional assistant. So I'm working on getting some one-on-one experience. And then I plan on, going to school, like online school through Wisconsin Stout to work with like vocational rehabilitation because I
Nice.
want to be involved with people with disabilities and helping them with finding careers, but also just getting the resources that they need to be successful. So,
Well, and that's a great objective because you've been there and you can help people and better identify with them, in the situations they've been in. And, there are plenty of people that do this kind of thing, but have no concept of what it's like to actually be in a wheelchair or, deal with certain disabilities.
yep. No, that is so true. Like, yeah, Yeah, some people say, "Oh, I know what it's like. I was in it because I twisted my ankle," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but every
Right.
day you're in it." So yeah,
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 those,
I
So
think
Mark,
it'll
what,
be helpful.
well, that's a good thing. I mean, and we wish you continued success there because it's really good to have people that are familiar with how people with disabilities have to get along.
Yeah,
So
and I
Mark,
even had.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I was even gonna just say, um, so when I was through that program, there was this life coach that I got to learn, or yeah, I learned a lot from him, and he's actually a quad, and he was showing me how he transferred in and out of his vehicle, and he would get his own hand cycle into the back of his vehicle, and I was like, oh wow, like this guy's a quad and he's doing all this, like, so it really motivated me to, work hard for myself and be as independent as possible. So yep.
So, all right, Mark, why don't you kind of wrap us up here and we'll move along.
yeah, no, this has been great. It's I great to meet you and to kind of just catch up on what's going on with the wheelchair sports. It's always nice to think back
Mm.
of those times and that, and would definitely keep in touch, with you, and um, get you involved in our Disability Channel Minnesota, and get you as a contributor, besides just trying for me and Charlie getting a cheap round of golf out of you. But we'll try to do some other things. But so no, I appreciate it, and um, I guess I'll just sign off right here. Um, I want to say thanks Jackson Larson, for Charlie Bros. This is Mark Knutson for Disability Landscape.